Hey everybody, I hope you all had a happy holiday season. I know I did. On my constructed languages video a few months ago, or a little over a month ago, someone asked about numbers in other cultures, and it sent me down a rabbit hole that I realized I hadn't really fallen down before. Before I take you on that tumble, however, I'm going to address the first question in this comment directly, which was, do you think that math and scientific notation are languages? The short answer is no, but I will elaborate. I do think that math and scientific notation and the way that we write out chemical equations, stuff like that, I think that there are ways to communicate that kind of transcend languages, right? It's not in English, it's not in French, it's in math. But I don't think that those qualify as languages per se, because you can't really use them to communicate everything that you could want to. I think that's a big qualifier in a language, is can you use it to ask questions or state demands or for everyday things, to say anything that you could think, and you can't use math to do that. I think the best, the way that I would categorize these things, what I would call them, are logic expression systems. That's just something I came up with. There's probably already other people who have talked about this. I'm just saying what I think off the top of my head. And side note, I think that coding languages for computers can also fit into this group of a way to communicate that is not essentially tied to a spoken language, but you can't really use it for everyday life. All right, now let's start falling and talk about the second half of this comment. How do other cultures represent numbers around the world? This is kind of like asking how many languages there are around the world. Numbers and counting are just those types of things that essentially every language has, except for Paraha. Those people are weird. It's so ubiquitous that Noam Chomsky proposes that numbers and counting are essential pieces of how a language develops. So naturally, nearly every culture has generated their own way to count and express numbers. So to keep this video somewhat focused, I'm just going to talk about the major ways that numbers are expressed today and stick to specific cultures worldwide that express numbers differently than we do. However, I will caveat that at this point, most people just use our Hindi Arabic numerals for many things. And basically everybody in the world who is educated formally learns our number system and uses it in their daily life. In the next video, I'm going to talk about where our number system came from, as well as kind of a history of how numbers have developed in the world in a few categorical ways. But today, we're just going to talk about modern cultures and counting systems. So let's hit the place that has the most different counting systems to us, China. So because China has this complex history, they have some writing systems and numeral systems of their own. And right now, China has 3 numeral systems. First, there's a traditional Chinese writing system for numbers that reflects spoken language. These numbers are called xiaojie, which means little writing. I'll get more on that later. Then their second one is our Arabic numerals, which they're used when it's convenient. So when you're doing math or writing a large amount, that can get kind of cumbersome in the traditional Chinese writing. They'll use our numbers to do that. And that really reflects on what we do. See, sometimes we write out the whole word for a number, and sometimes we write out the numbers for a number. And we'll change those out depending on what's more convenient for us in the situation. The third one is most interesting to me. There are financial Chinese numerals. They're called dajie, which means big writing. So, what's this little writing, big writing thing? Okay, let's break it down. Chinese is logographic, right? So, to write two, for example, you just write two lines. Now, suppose you give me a check for $200. In traditional Chinese writing, that would look like this. And I'm a dishonest person, and I want to make it say $300. All I have to do with a little numbers is add a line, and bada bing, bada boom, I got a $100 raise. Obviously, this can't continue, or society would collapse. So the Chinese have also created this big writing system that stops you from forging numbers. It's a more complex way to write numbers 1 through 10, and even more complex ways to write hundreds and thousands and stuff like that. And I think that's really cool. Like, that's an interesting symptom of a logographic system, and that's just not something that we would think of. Like, I guess the closest thing that we have to that is after we write on a check, we'll write the number amount in Arabic numerals, and then we'll write a line on the side so that nobody can, like, move decimal places or add zeros or anything like that. But imagine if like, we were stressed about people changing ones into sevens, so we created a whole different way to write one. That'd be the best way that I could think to analogize that. Now, these Chinese writing systems, they also spread to Korea, Japan, and Vietnam, like basically every other piece of Chinese culture. And they each have their own little twists, but for the most part, they're going to use the Arabic numeral system. Another cool numeral system that is still used today is the Hebrew numeral system. It's only really used in rare situations, specifically when you're talking about the Hebrew calendar. But it stands out as a different way to count in the modern world. It started in the 2nd century BC, based on a similar system that the Greeks were using, where essentially you take the alphabet, right? And the first 9 letters of the alphabet represent the numbers 1 through 9. And then the next 9 letters of the alphabet represent the numbers 10 through 90. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And then it happens again with the rest of the alphabet for the hundreds. And in the case of the Hebrew numeral system, they can only cover 100, 200, 300, and 400. But by then, those numbers are big enough that you can express most values that you would use in your daily life, especially with like a calendar. So I'm going to give you an example for how that would look if we did that same process with the Latin alphabet. So if I wanted to write 158 using that system where letters are numbers, you would write S, N, H for 158. I might discuss this a little bit more in my next video since it relates to the way other cultures wrote their numbers, specifically the Greeks, like I mentioned. All right, and I've been saying Arabic numerals this whole time, so you might assume that in Arabic countries, they wrote with the same number system that we do. And they do. Here you go. Look at it. Look at how similar that looks pretty similar, right? Oh, no, it doesn't. There's some numbers there that you don't recognize. Like, why do 7 and 8 just look like an up and a down? No, don't worry. It gets worse because Thailand exists. And those numbers are related to our numbers. Isn't that fun? Yeah, I'm excited to get into that. Anyway, there are tons of other ways that numbers are written around the world. These are just the major contemporary ones. Next time, I'll dig into how numbers have been written around the world and the patterns that emerge there. Thank you very much for watching Linking. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.